The stars looked different from this far out. Maya Torres pressed her hand against the cold window of the horizon and stared at the swirling colors of the Andromeda sector. 3 months of travel had brought them here, to the edge of known space where humanity would meet another intelligent species for the first time. She could hear Captain Derek Stone pacing behind her in the observation deck. He was nervous, though he tried to hide it. Everyone on the ship was nervous. This meeting could change everything for humanity. They were no longer alone in the universe. "You ready for this?" Derek asked, stepping beside her. His reflection in the window showed a man in his 40s, gray hair just starting to appear at his temples. He had been in the space service for 20 years, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Maya nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." She was younger than most of the crew, only 28, but her military record spoke for itself. She had been chosen for this mission because of her skills and her ability to stay calm under pressure. What the captain didn't know, what most people didn't know, was that Maya was part of a special program. Her bones were stronger than normal human bones. Her muscles had been enhanced. Her reflexes were faster. She was stronger and tougher than any normal person, though she looked completely ordinary. The intercom crackled to life. "Captain Stone, we're approaching Epsilon Hub. The Velcrans are requesting permission to board." It was Jake Morrison, their pilot. He sounded excited and scared at the same time. "Tell them yes," Derek said. "We'll meet them in the main docking bay." The docking bay was the largest open space on the horizon. The crew had cleaned it until it sparkled. They wanted to make a good impression. Maya stood with Derek and Lisa Carter, their science officer. Lisa was holding a tablet computer, ready to record everything about their visitors. The airlock hissed and opened slowly. Maya felt her heart beating faster. This was it. First contact. The Velcrans were tall, much taller than humans. They had to duck slightly to fit through the doorway. Their bodies were covered in a hard shell that looked like insect armor, colored in shades of blue and green. They had 4 arms instead of 2, and their heads were elongated with multiple eyes arranged in a circle. When they moved, they made soft clicking sounds. The lead Velcran stepped forward. A small device on its chest began to speak in English, translating its clicks and electromagnetic pulses into words humans could understand. "I am Ambassador Korath. We greet you humans in peace and curiosity." Derek stepped forward and extended his hand, then remembered that might not be the right gesture. He pulled it back awkwardly. "I am Captain Derek Stone. Welcome to the horizon. We are honored to meet you." The Velcrans seemed to study them carefully. Their multiple eyes moved independently, looking at different crew members at once. It was unsettling. Maya forced herself to stand still and appear calm. "You are smaller than we expected," Korath said. "But you have traveled far. This shows determination. We would like to invite you to Epsilon Hub, the trading station nearby. There we can talk more comfortably and discuss the future between our peoples." Derek agreed immediately. Within an hour, the entire human delegation was aboard a Velcran shuttle heading to the station. The station was massive, much larger than any structure humanity had built in space. It was shaped like a wheel, rotating slowly to create artificial gravity. Lights covered its surface, and hundreds of ships from different species were docked at various ports. Inside, the station was even more impressive. The corridors were wide and tall, clearly built for species much larger than humans. Strange aliens walked past them, some floating, some crawling on the ceiling, some that looked almost normal except for odd details like extra limbs or crystalline skin. Maya tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to be amazed. The Velcrans led them to a conference room with a large table and chairs that adjusted automatically to fit human size. For the next several hours, they talked about trade, about territory, about the possibility of an alliance. The Velcrans were polite but distant. They asked many questions about human culture, human technology, and human history. It was Lisa who first noticed the problem. During a break, she whispered to Derek, "They keep asking about our military, about weapons, about conflicts. I think they're worried we're dangerous." Derek frowned. "We've been peaceful in every interaction. What have we done wrong?" The answer came during the next session. Ambassador Korath brought in what appeared to be a security officer, a Velcran with darker armor and additional equipment. "Before we continue," Korath said, "we must conduct standard security scans. This is required for all species new to Epsilon Hub." The security officer moved around the table, holding a device that hummed softly. When it passed over Maya, it made a different sound, a sharp beeping that filled the room. The security officer stopped and scanned her again. The beeping grew louder. "What is this?" the officer asked, its translator making its voice sound harsh. "This human shows abnormal readings. Enhanced skeletal structure, increased muscle density, accelerated neural pathways," it turned to Korath. "Ambassador, this human has been modified for combat. She is a biological weapon." The room went silent. All eyes turned to Maya. She felt her face grow hot, but she kept her expression neutral. Derek stood up quickly. "Lieutenant Torres is an enhanced soldier, yes, but she is not a weapon. She is a member of my crew, here for protection and security, just like your security officer there." "It is not the same," Korath said, and for the first time, there was emotion in the translated voice. "Fear. We Velcrons do not modify our bodies. We rely on technology for protection. Energy shields, defensive fields, ranged weapons. The idea of making oneself into a weapon, of enhancing flesh and bone for violence, this is disturbing to us. Primitive. Barbaric." "It's not barbaric," Maya said quietly. "It's practical. Humans evolved on a dangerous world. We learned to fight with our hands because we had to survive. Some of us choose to become better at protecting others." "Protecting or attacking?" the security officer asked. "How can we tell the difference?" Derek tried to smooth things over, explaining human culture and military tradition, but the damage was done. The Velcrons had become suspicious. They demanded that all enhanced humans be identified, and that they surrender any weapons before negotiations could continue. Maya had no weapons to surrender except the standard sidearm all security personnel carried, which she handed over willingly. But the tension remained. As they were escorted to their assigned quarters on the station, Maya could feel the Velcron guards watching her, their multiple eyes tracking her every movement. She realized that to them she was the monster in the room, not because of anything she had done, but simply because of what she was. That night, alone in her quarters, Maya practiced her combat forms, moving through the martial arts routines that had been drilled into her since childhood. The movements calmed her mind and centered her thoughts. She didn't know it then, but those same movements would soon change everything. For better or worse, humanity's first contact was about to become much more complicated. 5 days had passed since the security scan incident. The negotiations between humans and Velcrons had continued, but the warmth had disappeared. Every meeting felt cold and formal. Ambassador Korath brought more security officers to each session. They stood along the walls watching the humans with their unsettling circular arrangement of eyes. Maya spent most of her time in the human quarters. Captain Derek had decided it was better if she stayed out of sight, to avoid making the Velcrons more nervous. She understood the logic, but it made her feel like a prisoner. The other crew members tried to keep her company. Jake Morrison would stop by to play cards and tell jokes. Lisa Carter shared her observations about the different alien species on the station. "There are 47 different species represented here," Lisa explained one evening, showing Maya her notes on her tablet. "And you know what? At least 20 of them have natural weapons. The Draxi have venomous spikes. The Korthians have claws that can cut through steel. The Aviri have beaks strong enough to break bones. But nobody treats them like they're dangerous just for existing." Maya smiled sadly. "Maybe it's because they were born that way. I chose this. I volunteered for the enhancement program. Maybe that's what scares them." "That's stupid," Jake said, shuffling the cards for another game. "You chose to become stronger so you could protect people. That's noble, not scary." But the Velcrons didn't see it that way. Unknown to the human delegation, a group of Velcron extremists had been watching the negotiations with growing alarm. They belonged to a faction called the Purity Circle, and they believed that any species capable of biological warfare was too dangerous to join the galactic community. To them, enhanced humans were proof that humanity would eventually threaten peaceful civilizations. The Purity Circle had supporters in the station's security force. They began to plan something that would turn everyone against the humans. They would make it look like the human delegation was plotting to take over Epsilon Hub by force. On the 6th day, Maya was in the training bay assigned to the human quarters. It was a small room with basic equipment, but it was enough for her to maintain her fitness routines. She was running through combat forms, practicing the flowing movements of the martial arts she had studied for years. Punch, block, turn, kick, sweep. Each motion was precise and controlled. This was meditation for her, a way to clear her mind and find peace. She didn't hear the door open behind her. Suddenly, harsh lights flooded the room and loud voices shouted in the Velcran language. Maya spun around and found herself facing 6 Velcran security officers, all pointing energy rifles at her. The lead guard was Commander Zilth, the same officer who had scanned her on the first day. "Freeze," the translator device commanded. "Do not move." Maya held perfectly still, her hands raised slightly. Her heart was pounding, but she kept her breathing steady. "What's going on?" she asked calmly. "We have evidence of human conspiracy," Zilth said, moving closer. His rifle never wavered. "Evidence that you plan to attack this station. Evidence that you are gathering intelligence for an invasion force." "That's insane," Maya said. "We're here for peace. We have no invasion force. We have one small ship." "We have found your communication logs," another guard said. "We have found your tactical assessments. We have found your combat training programs." Maya realized what had happened. Someone had hacked their systems and planted false evidence, or twisted innocent information to look guilty. The combat training programs were standard military fitness routines. The tactical assessments were Lisa's scientific notes about the station's layout. The communication logs were just regular reports back to Earth. But trying to explain that to guards who were already convinced she was dangerous would be pointless. "Drop your weapon," Zilth commanded, his voice sharp with tension. Maya looked down at herself. She was wearing simple training clothes, shorts, and a shirt soaked with sweat. Her hands were empty except for the training gloves she wore to protect her knuckles. She had no weapon, nothing but her own body. Despite the danger, despite the energy rifles pointed at her, Maya couldn't help it. The absurdity of the situation struck her, and a slight smile crossed her face. She raised her fist slowly, showing the training gloves. "You mean my hands?" she said. The room went silent for a moment. Zilth's eyes narrowed in confusion, then widened in what might have been anger. "Mock us at your peril, human. You are under arrest." Maya lowered her hands carefully, keeping her movements slow and non-threatening. "I'm not mocking you. I'm complying. I have no weapon to drop. I'll come with you peacefully." 2 guards moved forward with restraints, metal bands that wrapped around her wrists and glowed with some kind of energy field. They weren't taking chances. As they led her out of the training bay, she saw other guards moving through the human quarters. They were arresting everyone. Captain Derek, Jake, Lisa, all of them were being rounded up. Derek saw Maya and tried to reach her, but guards blocked his way. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. "We are a diplomatic delegation. You can't arrest us without charges. You are charged with conspiracy to commit violence," Zilth announced to all of them. "You are charged with smuggling biological weapons into Epsilon Hub. You are charged with planning an act of war against the galactic community." They were taken to detention cells deep inside the station. The cells were small but clean, with transparent walls so guards could watch the prisoners at all times. Maya was placed in a cell alone, separated from the others. She could see Derek 3 cells down and Lisa 2 cells in the other direction, but they were too far apart to talk. Hours passed. Maya sat on the simple bench in her cell and tried to think. Someone had set them up deliberately, but why? What did anyone gain from making humans look like aggressors, unless some group wanted to prevent humanity from joining the galactic community? Unless someone saw humans as a threat that needed to be eliminated before they became too powerful? A screen on the wall of her cell flickered to life. It showed a news broadcast from the Galactic Network. Maya watched in horror as the footage played. It was security camera recording from the training bay, showing the moment when Zilth had confronted her. She watched herself smile and raise her fists. She heard her own voice say, "You mean my hands?" But the context was missing. The broadcast didn't show Zilth ordering her to drop her weapon. It didn't show that she was unarmed. It just showed a human smiling and raising her fists at armed guards. To viewers who didn't understand human expressions, her smile might look aggressive. Her raised fists might look like a threat. The news commentator, a species Maya didn't recognize, spoke in grave tones. "This footage shows the true nature of humanity. When confronted by security forces, this enhanced warrior mocked them and prepared to attack with her bare hands. Experts say this confirms fears that humans are too violent for civilized society." Maya put her head in her hands. This was a disaster. The footage was spreading across the entire galactic network. Every species that had been watching humanity's first contact would see this. They would all believe humans were dangerous. She looked up and saw Derek watching the same broadcast in his cell. His face was pale. He looked defeated. This was supposed to be humanity's moment of triumph, the day they joined the galactic community. Instead, it had become their worst nightmare. Maya stood up and walked to the transparent wall of her cell. A guard was standing outside, watching her carefully. She recognized him as one of the guards from the training bay. "Please," she said quietly. "You have to know this is wrong. That footage is misleading. I wasn't threatening anyone. I was cooperating." The guard didn't respond. He just stared at her with his multiple eyes, seeing only what he had been taught to see. A weapon in human form. A threat to be contained. Maya turned away and sat back down. She had trained for many scenarios in her military career. Combat situations, hostage negotiations, survival in hostile environments. But she had never trained for this. Being judged and convicted by an entire galaxy, based on a misunderstanding and a moment caught on camera without context. Outside her cell across Epsilon Hub, the Purity Circle celebrated their success. They had turned the galaxy against humanity. Now they just needed to ensure that the Galactic Arbitration Council would ban humans from space forever, or force them to change what they were. But the Purity Circle had made one mistake. They had assumed that all species would react to the footage the same way. They had assumed that everyone would see humans as a threat. They hadn't considered that some species might see something different, something that would soon change everything. Part 3. The Galactic Arbitration Council chamber was enormous. It had to be, to accommodate representatives from dozens of different species, each with different needs for atmosphere, gravity, and space. The room was circular, with seats arranged in rising tiers around a central platform where those being judged would stand. Maya stood on that platform now, with Captain Derek beside her. Jake and Lisa were behind them, along with the rest of the human delegation. They had been held in detention for 3 days before being brought here. 3 days of watching the galactic news spread their story, watching species they had never met debate whether humanity should be allowed to exist in its current form. The council members sat in their designated sections. Maya recognized some species from Epsilon Hub. The Velkrans occupied a large section with Ambassador Koreth sitting prominently among them. The Aviri, the bird-like species Lisa had mentioned, filled another section with their colorful feathers and sharp beaks. There were dozens of others, too many to count. At the highest tier sat the council president, a being called Thane from the Aviri species. His feathers were silver with age and his eyes were sharp and intelligent. When he spoke, his voice carried across the entire chamber through translation devices. "This council has been assembled to judge the case of humanity," Thane began. "The charges are severe. Smuggling biological weapons, specifically enhanced humans, into neutral space, conspiracy to commit acts of violence, threatening behavior towards security personnel. These charges, if proven, will result in humanity being barred from the galactic community until such time as they modify their species to remove all biological enhancements and submit to pacification protocols." Maya felt her stomach turn. Pacification protocols. They wanted to change humanity, to make them docile and harmless, to take away the very qualities that had allowed humans to survive and thrive on Earth. Thane continued, "The prosecution will present evidence." "Speak, prosecutor." Another Aviri stepped forward, younger than Thane, with bright blue feathers. "Thank you, President. I am Prosecutor Lorik. The evidence against humanity is clear and disturbing." He activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Images appeared pulled from human history. Wars, battles, weapons, violence. "Humanity's history is written in blood," Lorik said. "For thousands of years they have fought each other with increasing brutality. They have developed weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. Even now in their entertainment they glorify violence. Fighting sports, action movies, video games centered on combat. This is not a peaceful species. This is a species that has turned violence into culture." The display changed to show footage of human soldiers, of military training, of martial arts competitions. Then it showed the scan results from Maya, highlighting her enhanced bones and muscles in glowing red. "They do not simply accept violence," Lorik continued. "They embrace it. They improve upon it. They take their own bodies and make them into more efficient weapons. Lieutenant Maya Torres is not an aberration. She is a product of human culture, A culture that sees strength through violence as virtue. The chamber filled with murmurs and clicks and whistles from different species. Many sounded frightened. Some sounded angry. Maya wanted to shout, to defend humanity, but she had been instructed to remain silent until called upon. Lorik played the footage from the training bay. Once again, Maya watched herself smile and raise her fists. When confronted by security forces and ordered to disarm, this human mocked them. She said, and I quote, "You mean my hands?" She was prepared to fight 6 armed guards with her bare hands. This shows not just capability for violence, but enthusiasm for it. Derek squeezed Maya's hand briefly. She knew he was trying to encourage her, but she felt hopeless. How could they defend against this? Everything Lorik said was technically true, even if the context was wrong. The prosecution's recommendation is clear, Lorik said. Humanity must undergo mandatory genetic modification to reduce physical capabilities to galactic standard levels. They must submit to cultural rehabilitation to eliminate violent tendencies. They must be monitored for a period of no less than 100 standard years. Only then can they be considered for limited membership in the galactic community. Lorik sat down. The murmurs in the chamber grew louder. It seemed like many council members agreed with him. Thane raised a wing for silence. The defense will now present their case. Maya was surprised when the defense representative stood. It was a species she hadn't seen before, tall and powerfully built with thick armor-like skin and eyes that glowed with an inner light. The translator identified him as Counselor Ven of the Therosian Imperium. Ven's voice was deep and resonant. President Thane honored council members. I stand in defense of humanity not because I approve of violence, but because I recognize the difference between capability and intent. The prosecution has shown you what humans can do. I will show you why they do it. He activated his own holographic display. It showed different scenes from human history. A firefighter carrying a child from a burning building, a person pulling another from floodwaters, soldiers defending civilians from attackers, athletes helping injured competitors across finish lines. Yes, humans are capable of violence, Ven said, but they are also capable of remarkable selflessness. Their history of war exists alongside a history of sacrifice and protection. They fight, yes, but often they fight to defend those who cannot defend themselves. The display changed to show statistics. 43 species in this chamber have natural weapons. The Draxi have venom. The Korthians have claws. My own species, the Therosians, have armor and strength far exceeding human capabilities. Yet we are all considered peaceful members of the galactic community. Why? Because we have proven that having weapons does not mean using them unjustly. Ven turned to face the council directly. The Velcrans fear humans because humans choose to enhance themselves. But is choice not the foundation of civilization? Humans chose to become stronger to better protect their people. How is this different from us Therosians who selectively bred ourselves for strength over millennia? How is this different from the Aviri, who modified their own genetics to survive in thin atmospheres? Lorik stood up, objecting. Those modifications were for survival, not for violence. And human enhancements are different? Ven challenged. Lieutenant Torres, please step forward. Maya moved to the center of the platform, her heart pounding. This was it. Her chance to explain. Lieutenant Torres, Ven said, tell the council why you volunteered for the enhancement program. Maya took a deep breath. I joined the program because I wanted to protect people. On Earth, we have dangerous situations. Natural disasters, accidents, sometimes violence, yes, but someone needs to be able to respond. Someone needs to be strong enough to carry people out of danger, fast enough to reach them in time. I became enhanced not to hurt people, but to save them. And your training in combat? Ven asked. The martial arts the prosecution showed? Martial arts are about discipline, Maya said. They teach control, not chaos. They teach you when to fight and, more importantly, when not to fight. Every martial artist learns that the best fight is the one you avoid. You only fight to protect as a last resort. Ven nodded. Will you demonstrate for the council? Show them what your combat training truly means? Maya glanced at Derek, who nodded encouragement. She stepped into an open space on the platform and began to move through a kata, a formal series of martial arts movements. Her body flowed from position to position, each movement precise and controlled. Punch, block, turn, kick, sweep. It looked aggressive, but there was a rhythm to it, almost like a dance. Watch carefully, Ven said to the council. Every movement has a purpose. The punch is followed by a pullback. The advance is balanced by a retreat. This is not mindless violence. This is choreographed control. This is discipline made physical. Maya completed the kata and returned to standing position, breathing slightly harder. She looked up at the council members. Some of them seemed thoughtful now, less afraid. I have one more piece of evidence, Ven said. He played a different recording, one Maya hadn't seen before. It showed the moment in the training bay from a different angle. This time the audio was clear. She could hear Zilth shouting at her to drop her weapon. She could hear the confusion in her own voice when she replied. The prosecution showed you a moment without context, Ven explained. They showed you a human smiling at armed guards, but they didn't tell you that she was smiling at the absurdity of being ordered to drop a weapon she didn't have. They didn't tell you that her raised hands were a gesture of compliance, not threat. They didn't tell you that she went peacefully into custody despite having the power to resist. Ven turned to face Thane. That is the measure of humanity, President. Not their capacity for violence, but their choice to restrain it. Not their strength, but their wisdom in using it only when necessary. The chamber was silent now. Ven returned to his seat. Thane looked thoughtful. His head tilted in that way birds had when considering something carefully. The council will deliberate, Thane said. We will reconvene shortly with our judgment. As the council members rose to leave for their deliberation chambers, alarms suddenly began blaring throughout the station. Part 4, the alarms were deafening. Red lights flashed throughout the council chamber. The translation system broadcast an emergency message in multiple languages simultaneously, creating a chaotic wall of sound. Alert. Hull breach in Sector 7. Alert. Hostile forces detected. All security personnel report to defensive positions. All civilians evacuate to designated safe zones. Thane's voice cut through the chaos. What is the nature of this attack? A Velcran security officer rushed into the chamber, his armor scorched and damaged. The Krell swarm, President. They've broken through the outer defenses. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They're cutting through our ships and entering the station. The chamber erupted in panic. Council members from dozens of species began rushing toward the exits. Maya knew about the Krell from military briefings back on Earth. They were one of the few truly hostile species humanity had learned about during their preparation for space exploration. Insect-like warriors who attacked in overwhelming numbers, fought with biological weapons and nearly impenetrable exoskeletons. They were supposed to be contained on the far edge of explored space, light years away from here. Why are they here? Derek shouted over the noise. This makes no sense. Lisa grabbed his arm. It doesn't matter why. We need to move. But the Velcran guards blocked their path. You remain under arrest, one of them said. You will be escorted to secure detention. Are you insane? Jake yelled. The station is under attack. We should be helping. You are the ones who brought this upon us, another guard accused. This is human treachery. Ven stepped forward, his large frame intimidating even to armed guards. Stand aside. These humans are under my protection now. If you wish to debate this, we can do so after we survive the next hour. The guards hesitated. Ven didn't wait for their decision. He simply walked forward and the guards moved aside. The human delegation followed him quickly. The corridors outside the chamber were chaos. Aliens of every species were running in panic. Some were heading toward escape pods. Others were trying to reach their ships. Security forces were attempting to establish defensive positions, but they seemed disorganized and frightened. Maya could hear the sounds of battle growing closer. Screeching roars, energy weapons firing, and the horrible sound of something tearing through metal. The Krell were coming fast. We need weapons, Maya said to Ven. He looked at her with those glowing eyes. You are still technically under arrest. If I arm you, I am breaking galactic law. If you don't arm us, we're all going to die, Maya replied. Your choice. Ven considered for only a moment, then nodded. There is an armory 2 levels down. Follow me. They ran through the corridors, moving against the tide of fleeing civilians. The armory was already damaged. Someone, probably fleeing security forces, had blown the door open. Inside weapons were scattered everywhere. Energy rifles, plasma pistols, force shields, and other devices Maya didn't recognize. Derek, Jake, and Lisa grabbed energy weapons. Maya looked at them and shook her head. These won't work well against the Krell. Their exoskeletons absorb energy. We need physical weapons. She found a maintenance section connected to the armory. Inside were tools meant for station repairs. Heavy wrenches, pry bars, Cutting implements. Not designed as weapons, but they would work. Maya grabbed a long metal pipe about 4 feet long and solid. She tested its weight. It would do. "You're going to fight alien monsters with a pipe?" Jake asked, incredulous. "I'm going to fight them with everything I have," Maya corrected. "The pipe is just a tool." An explosion rocked the corridor outside. Smoke poured through the doorway. Through the smoke came the Krell. They were terrifying up close, tall as humans but wider, with forearms ending in razor claws. Their heads were mostly mouth filled with multiple rows of teeth. Their exoskeletons were black and red, shining like polished metal. They moved with frightening speed. The first Krell spotted them and shrieked. 3 more appeared behind it. They charged. Derek fired his energy rifle. The blast hit the lead Krell square in the chest. The creature stumbled but didn't fall. The energy dissipated across its exoskeleton with minimal damage. It kept coming. Maya ran forward to meet it. This was what her training was for. Not sport, not exercise, but survival. She slid under the Krell's first claw swipe, her enhanced reflexes making the motion smooth. As she passed underneath, she swung the pipe hard into the joint where the creature's leg connected to its body. There was a sickening crunch. The Krell's leg buckled. She rolled to her feet and swung again, this time at the creature's head. The impact rang like a bell. The Krell collapsed. The other 3 Krell hesitated, confused. They were used to enemies that fought at range. Maya didn't give them time to adapt. She charged the second one, using the momentum to drive the end of her pipe into its chest joint. It wasn't as protected as the main shell. The Krell shrieked and fell back. Jake and Derek stopped firing and watched in amazement. Lisa looked horrified but also fascinated, her scientific mind recording everything even in the middle of combat. "Don't just stand there," Maya shouted. "Use your weapons as clubs. Hit the joints." Derek understood immediately. He reversed his rifle and swung it like a bat, hitting a Krell in the knee joint. The creature stumbled. Jake did the same, ganging up on the same target. Together they brought it down. The 4th Krell turned and ran, shrieking what might have been a warning to others. "We need to move," Ven said. "More will come." "Many more. Where?" Derek asked. "Where can we go that's safe?" "Nowhere is safe," Ven replied. "But there is a civilian shelter in Sector 4. Mostly younglings from various species. If the Krell reach them—" He didn't need to finish. They all knew what would happen. "Then we go there," Maya said. "We protect them." "We're 5 people," Lisa said quietly. "How can we protect hundreds against an army?" Maya looked at her friends, at Ven, then down at the pipe in her hands. "We do what humans have always done. We adapt, we fight smart, and we don't give up." They moved through the station, fighting when they had to, avoiding combat when they could. The Krell were everywhere now, pouring through breached sections like water through a cracked dam. Velcran security forces tried to stop them, but their energy weapons were nearly useless at close range, and the Krell were experts at closing distance. Maya watched guards get torn apart, unable to fight effectively once their weapons failed. They passed other species trying to fight. The Aviri used their natural beaks and talons. The Draxi tried their venom, but the Krell exoskeletons protected them. The Korthians had some success with their claws, but they were smaller than the Krell and were quickly overwhelmed. By the time they reached the civilian shelter, they had fought through at least 20 Krell. Maya's improvised weapon was bent and covered in alien blood. Her arms ached. Her enhanced body could take more punishment than a normal human, but she still felt every impact. The shelter door was sealed. Derek pounded on it. "This is Captain Derek Stone of the human delegation." "We're here to help. Open up." The door cracked open slightly. Velcran eyes peered out. "The humans? You are under arrest." "We're under attack," Maya shouted. "Arrest us later. Right now those civilians need protection." There was a moment of hesitation, then the door opened. Inside were at least 200 beings, mostly younglings from various species. Velcran children with their shells not yet fully hardened. Avri chicks huddled together. Others Maya didn't recognize. Teachers and caretakers were trying to keep them calm, but terror filled the air. "The Krell will find this place," Ven said quietly to Maya. "The shelter is designed to protect against accidents, not invasion. When they come, that door won't hold. Then we hold the door," Maya said simply. She positioned herself in the corridor outside the shelter. Derek, Jake, and Lisa took positions around her. Ven stood slightly back, his massive frame ready to serve as a final barrier if they fell. They didn't have to wait long. The Krell came in a wave, at least 30 of them, filling the corridor from wall to wall. They saw the humans and shrieked with rage. Maya stepped forward to meet them. This was what she had been created for. Not glory, not conquest, but this moment. Standing between monsters and innocence, using strength to protect weakness. This was the true meaning of being enhanced. The first Krell reached her. She ducked under its claws and struck its leg joint. It fell. The second one leaped over its fallen companion. She rolled aside and brought her pipe up into its underside. The third one caught her shoulder with a claw, tearing through her uniform and drawing blood. She ignored the pain and struck back, crushing its forward claw. Behind her, Derek and Jake fought with their improvised weapons. Lisa dragged the wounded back toward the shelter door, treating injuries as best she could. Maya lost track of time. Everything became motion and reaction. Strike, dodge, block, strike again. Her enhanced reflexes let her process the battle faster than a normal human could. Her strengthened bones absorbed impacts that would have shattered normal human skeletons. Her improved muscles kept fighting long after ordinary humans would have collapsed from exhaustion. But even she had limits. A Krell got through her guard and struck her in the ribs. She felt something crack. Another one clawed her leg. She stumbled but kept fighting. Blood ran into her eyes from a cut on her forehead. Still, she fought. Part 5. Maya woke up in a medical bay, though it took her a moment to realize where she was. The ceiling was white and curved, and strange machines hummed around her. Her body ached in ways she had never experienced before. Even with her enhancements, she had pushed herself beyond normal limits. "You are awake. This is good." The voice belonged to a medical professional, a species Maya didn't recognize. They had too many tentacles and eyes that glowed a soft blue. "You have been unconscious for 2 standard days. Your injuries were severe, but your enhanced physiology aided recovery. You will heal completely." Maya tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain shot through her ribs. The others? Captain Stone, Jake, Lisa? All recovering. Less injured than you. You took the worst of the fighting. The medical professional made a gesture that might have been admiration. "You saved many lives, human. The younglings in the shelter, they all survived because of you and your companions." Memories of the battle flooded back. The endless wave of Krell, the pain, the fear. But also the moment when Zilth and his guards had joined the fight. The moment when different species had worked together. What happened to the Krell? Are they gone? Yes, a fleet arrived from the inner systems. They drove the Krell back. The attack is over. Epsilon Hub is damaged but secure. The medical professional adjusted some equipment. "You should rest now. You have visitors, but I will tell them to wait." "No," Maya said. "Let them in. I'm awake enough." The first person through the door was Captain Derek. He looked tired but healthy, with only a few bandages visible on his arms. His face broke into a huge smile when he saw her awake. "Torres, you scared us. You were in bad shape when we got you to medical." He pulled up a chair beside her bed. "The doctors said you had 3 broken ribs, a fractured arm, a concussion, and more cuts than they could count. But you kept fighting until the last Krell fell." "Did we lose anyone?" Maya asked. "From our crew?" "No, we all made it. Some injuries, but nothing permanent." Derek's expression grew more serious. The station wasn't as lucky. Over 300 dead, mostly security forces who weren't prepared for close combat. Hundreds more injured, but the civilian casualties were minimal because people like you stood between them and the Krell. The door opened again, and Zilth entered. He looked different somehow. Less threatening, more uncertain. He approached Maya's bed carefully, as if unsure of his welcome. "Lieutenant Torres," he said through his translator. "I must speak with you." Maya nodded, too tired to be angry even if she wanted to be. "I was wrong," Zilth said simply. "About you. About humans. I saw your enhancements and believed you were weapons. I saw your training and believed you were violent. But I did not understand until I watched you fight. You stood against impossible odds, not for glory, not for conquest, but to protect younglings that were not even your species. You were willing to die for them." He paused, his multiple eyes focusing on her. "We Velcrans have relied on technology for so long that we forgot what it means to fight. We forgot that sometimes courage and determination matter more than superior weapons. When our energy rifles failed against the Krell, we were helpless. You showed us another way. You showed us that strength when used to protect is noble, not barbaric. You fought well too," Maya said quietly. "When you came with your guards attacking the Krell from behind. That took courage. I learned from watching you, Zilth replied. You were my teacher in that moment, though you did not know it. Over the next few days, Maya received many visitors. Lisa came with reports about how other species had responded to the attack. Apparently, footage of the battle had spread across the galactic network, just like the footage from the training bay. But this time the context was clear. Humans fighting to protect alien younglings, humans teaching other species how to adapt and overcome. Jake visited with terrible jokes and surprisingly good food. He had somehow convinced the station's kitchens to prepare. Ven came and told her that the Therosian Imperium was formally requesting diplomatic relations with Earth. Other species were making similar requests. On the 5th day after the attack, Maya was finally cleared to leave medical. She was still sore but healing rapidly. She walked slowly through the repaired corridors of Epsilon Hub, seeing the signs of battle and reconstruction everywhere. Workers from dozens of species worked together to fix the damage. There was a different feeling to the station now. Less fear, more cooperation. She found her way to the council chamber. It had been repaired and the council had reconvened to finish the business that had been interrupted by the Krell attack. Maya entered quietly and took her place on the central platform with Derek and the others. Thane looked down at them from his high seat. His silver feathers seemed to shine in the chamber's light. We were in the process of judging humanity when fate decided to render its own judgment. The council has deliberated, taking into account both the evidence presented before the attack and the actions witnessed during it. The chamber was silent. Every species representative was present watching. The charges against humanity are dismissed, Thane announced. The evidence was based on misunderstanding and deliberate manipulation by extremist elements who have since been arrested. But more than that, humanity has proven through actions what words could not convey. They are not a threat to the galactic community. They are potentially one of its greatest assets. He paused, letting the translation catch up. Humanity possesses qualities that much of the galaxy has lost in our pursuit of technological advancement. Adaptability, physical courage, the ability to think creatively under pressure, the willingness to sacrifice for others. These qualities are not barbaric. They are admirable. Thane continued. The Galactic Council officially welcomes humanity into the galactic community with full membership and all associated rights. Furthermore, we have a request. Would humanity be willing to establish what Lieutenant Torres called a training academy? A place where species from across the galaxy can learn the combat techniques, the adaptive thinking, and the protective instincts that humans possess? Derek looked at Maya. She smiled and nodded. He turned back to Thane. Humanity would be honored to accept this responsibility. The chamber erupted in approval. Not all species were enthusiastic, but the majority clearly supported the decision. The Velcrans, surprisingly, were among the most vocal supporters. After the session ended, Maya walked out onto one of the station's observation decks. She looked out at the stars, at the ships coming and going, at the vast galaxy humanity was now part of. It felt surreal. A few weeks ago, they were alone in the universe. Now they were teachers to species that had mastered technology humanity could barely imagine. Zilth joined her at the window. I have been authorized to make a request, he said. The Velcran security forces would like you to be our primary instructor when your academy opens. We have much to learn, and I believe you would be an excellent teacher. Maya looked at him in surprise. You want me to teach your people how to fight? No, Zilth corrected. I want you to teach us why to fight. When to fight. How to use strength in service of protection rather than aggression. These lessons are more important than any technique. She considered this. I'll have to talk to my superiors on Earth, but personally I would be honored. Zilth nodded and turned to leave, then paused. I must ask. That day in the training bay when I ordered you to drop your weapon and you said you mean my hands? Were you mocking me or were you truly confused? Maya smiled. Both, honestly. I was confused because I had no weapon, but I also found it funny in a dark way. Sometimes humans use humor to deal with scary situations. It helps us cope. Humor in the face of death, Zilth said thoughtfully. This is also something we must learn to understand about humans. You are a complex species. All species are complex, Maya replied. We just need to take time to understand each other. Months later, the Galactic Defense Academy opened on a new station built specifically for the purpose. It was a joint project, with different species contributing different technologies and resources. But the core curriculum was designed by humans. Maya stood in front of her first class. There were 43 students from 17 different species. Velcrans, Aviri, Therosians, and many others. They looked at her with a mix of curiosity and respect. "Welcome to the Academy," Maya began. "Over the next months, you will learn combat techniques from various human martial arts traditions. You will learn tactical thinking and adaptive problem solving. You will learn about human military history and strategy. But most importantly, you will learn the philosophy behind all of this." She walked along the front of the room, making eye contact with each student. "Every species here has natural weapons or technological advantages. The Draxi have venom. The Korthians have claws. The Velcrans have energy shields. What humans have is something different. We have the ability to adapt, to overcome, to find solutions when no solution seems to exist. We have the will to stand between danger and innocence even when logic says we cannot win." A young Velcran raised one of its 4 arms. Maya recognized it as one of the younglings from the shelter, now old enough to attend the academy. "Teacher, do you believe any species can learn these human qualities?" Maya smiled. "I know they can. Because they're not just human qualities.